In the quiet suburban living room, a heavy silence descended on a Sunday afternoon. Karen, Emily's mother-in-law, carefully prepared tea, her movements more deliberate than usual. A cold calculation gleamed in her eyes as she began. "Emily, you're a department head now, aren't you? Your salary has grown quite a bit." "Yes, I've heard that managers in big corporations, with bonuses, make astronomical sums. You're really impressive." Emily, about to reach for her teacup, paused and looked at her mother-in-law. Beside Karen, as if on cue, sat her husband, David, her sister-in-law, Lisa, and her brother-in-law, Kevin, all watching Emily intently. Striving to appear unfazed, Emily calmly replied, "Yes, Karen, that's roughly right. But there's also a lot of responsibility, and the work is very demanding, so it's not all that simple." Before Emily could finish, Karen nodded with satisfaction. Then, looking lovingly at Kevin sitting nearby, she continued, "See, what a capable daughter-in-law we have. Here's the thing. Our Kevin has made an important decision. He's decided to go study in America. It's a little late, of course, but if he wants to get a real PhD, he needs to go right now. With a PhD, his future will be secured, won't it?" Emily set down her cup and looked at her brother-in-law. Kevin, already in his early 30s, still didn't have a stable job, spending years pretending to prepare for graduate school while living off the family. Kevin scratched the back of his head sheepishly and offered a guilty smile. Emily calmly asked, "Congratulations, but how exactly are you preparing for your studies? The costs are considerable." At her question, Lisa, as if she'd been waiting for it, immediately chimed in. "Sister-in-law, I looked into it. There's a great program near MIT. If Kevin handled it himself, it would take years, but I, as his sister, took everything into my own hands. Right?" Emily mentally smirked. A cold one. A PhD program near MIT. That's over $50,000 a year just for tuition. And with the insane cost of living in Boston, it would be no less than $100,000 a year. Emily looked directly at her mother-in-law and posed the crucial question, "And how do you plan to cover these expenses?" A flicker of tension crossed Karen's face. Fidgeting with her teacup, she began her psychological attack in a soft voice. "Emily, you know our financial situation. Besides this house, I have nothing. And Lisa is barely making ends meet with her language school. David's salary, as a government employee, you know how it is. But if Kevin gets a good education, it will raise the status of our entire family. Imagine, if he becomes a professor, how proud your parents will be." "You're right, Karen. But who will pay for such large expenses?" Then Karen, with an air of bestowing a great favor, moved to the main point. "We need to divide the roles, don't we? Family is for helping each other in difficult times. You, Emily, have a stable job and the highest income. Therefore, I think it would be right if you helped our younger Kevin with the initial relocation costs and the first year's tuition." Initial costs. What sum exactly are we talking about? Well, approximately $100,000. This amount will be enough for him to find accommodation in America and study peacefully for a year without any distractions. It's not such a big sum for you, is it? Karen uttered the figure of $100,000 as easily as if it were petty cash. Emily, stunned, looked at her husband sitting nearby, but David avoided her gaze, staring out the window. Emily nudged him in the side and asked, "David, what do you think? Your mother is asking me to fork out $100,000 for your brother's education. Do you think that's normal?" David reluctantly turned his head, but still didn't look his wife in the eye. "Darling, Mom has a point. If Kevin succeeds, it will be good for us too. You have the means. Let's just help him this once. We're family." David's irresponsible words made Emily's blood boil. Lisa, sensing the moment, immediately chimed in. "Exactly, sister-in-law. You're a department head in a major corporation. You get bonuses worth hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars. Your parents will also be thrilled to know how much you care for your husband's family. Honestly, who else in this family, besides you, can immediately put up such a sum? You think I have spare cash? I'm also saving for retirement, and I help my own parents. $100,000 doesn't just appear in my pocket out of nowhere. When Emily firmly drew a line, Karen's voice sharpened. Emily, how can you be so calculating? Helping each other in the family is our duty. You are a daughter-in-law in this home. So, to be a good daughter-in-law, in situations like this, you need to take initiative. Don't think of it as an expense, but an investment. An investment. Then, you'll give me a promissory note. Let's document the promise that when your son becomes a professor, he'll return this money with interest. A dead silence fell over the living room, as if everyone had been doused with ice water. A promissory note, that's too much. What kind of agreement between relatives? We're not strangers. Precisely because we are family. Everything should be clear. $100,000 is no joke. Kevin, what do you think? Can't you write a promissory note for tuition paid with your brother's wife's money? Kevin, looking around awkwardly, mumbled almost inaudibly. Sister-in-law. I'm sorry. I'll definitely pay it back when I succeed. I just don't have anything right now. Emily gave a cold smirk and stood up. There was no point in listening further. I'll think about it and let you know. For today, I think I'll go. Wait, Emily, we're not finished yet. Are you just going to leave like that? Karen shouted at her back. But Emily, without turning around, walked towards the exit. David rushed out after her and grabbed her arm. Darling, why are you upsetting Mom like that? You could have just said you agreed. Upsetting? And my feelings, of course, don't matter to you. Do you think $100,000 of my money is like spare change from a vending machine? Emily coldly pulled her arm away from her husband and got into her car. Arriving home, Emily headed not to the bedroom, but to her home office. She pulled an external hard drive from a hidden spot and connected it to her laptop. An Excel file titled Husband's Family, Financial Status, and Abuse appeared on the screen. Emily, with a practiced motion, began to scroll through the file. In truth, she had been investigating what was happening behind her back for several months. Kevin Miller, gambling debt, $850. Karen Miller, apartment deposit debt due to fraud from acquaintances, $120. A cold smirk played on Emily's lips. The studies were just a pretext to extract money from her and pay off their debts. Studies. So they planned to use her money to pay off gambling debts. Well, we'll see who outsmarts whom. Emily calmly picked up her phone and dialed a number. Her ideal revenge plan was ready to launch. From that day on, Emily's mind was filled with complex calculations. 3 days later, as she was preparing to leave work, her phone rang shrilly. Her mother-in-law's name flashed on the screen. Before Emily could answer, an irritated voice hit her ear. Emily, come straight to our place after work today. I have a serious talk with you, so don't even think about going anywhere else. Come straight here. It wasn't just an order. It was an ultimatum. Emily took a deep breath and drove to her husband's parents' house. Karen and Lisa were already sitting on the sofa, fully battle-ready, while David fidgeted nervously beside them, casting guilty glances their way. You're here. Sit down, let's talk calmly over a cup of tea. Karen gestured with her chin towards the sofa. Emily placed her bag down and sat silently. Her mother-in-law, taking a sip of tea as if nothing was amiss, got straight to the point. Regarding our Kevin studies, which we discussed, we've recalculated, and we need exactly $100,000. For relocation, tuition, and living expenses, exactly $100,000. No excuses. Get the money ready. Emily couldn't believe her ears. Last time, there was at least a hint of joint participation. Now it sounded as if she was obligated to pay for everything entirely. Karen, are you saying I have to pay all $100,000? Last time, you spoke of shared involvement. What nonsense are you talking about? Who else here can be involved? We have no money at all right now. You know my pension barely covers living expenses, and Lisa is completely in debt because of her school. Who else in this family has $100,000 besides you? Karen said, sipping her tea unfazed. Emily's hands trembled at such blatant nerve. David, what do you think? Do you agree that I alone should pay for your brother's $100,000 tuition? David still avoided her gaze, staring at the floor. Darling, this is our family problem. Kevin isn't a stranger to me. He's my brother. Isn't it natural to help each other in a family? You have the means. It's Mom's dream. Let's just overlook it and help. The word family from her husband's lips pierced Emily's heart like a knife. At that moment, Lisa shoved her phone in front of her. Sister-in-law, look, I researched prices near MIT. $100,000 will cover a comfortable year and a half. With the current exchange rate, that amount is needed so Kevin doesn't feel deprived and can focus on his studies. That's a very reasonable price. Reasonable. Lisa, by what criteria do you determine that? Does my salary seem so insignificant in your eyes? Lisa, ignoring her, continued with a smile. Oh, sister-in-law, you have to go by your salary. You're a department head in a major corporation. $100,000 for you is just a matter of time. And we are truly in a difficult situation. I barely pay my school's rent, and my brother, as you know, has a government salary. It's only natural that the one who can pays, and who decided I have such means. I can't understand why I should pay for his education with my hard-earned money. Emily's gaze turned icy, but Karen, on the other hand, raised her voice. Emily, what do you think you're doing? Are we asking you for something impossible? You are a daughter-in-law in this house. If your brother-in-law succeeds, gets a Ph.D., it will be better for you too. Is that a bad thing? Your parents will also be proud to know you're helping your husband's family so much. The mention of her parents was the last straw. Fine, Karen, then there are conditions. What is your concrete plan? How will Kevin return this money after graduating? A Ph.D. takes at least 5 years. Who will pay for his living expenses all that time? Are you sure he'll find a job after he returns? We'll think about that later. The main thing is to send him there first. If we start talking about debts now, how can he concentrate on his studies? Karen's answer was the height of irresponsibility. Emily, stunned, laughed. Later, meaning I should just give you $100,000. Lisa, how much will you contribute? Sister-in-law, I'm truly struggling. Don't you know what a crisis the education sector is in right now? I myself am living on debt, on credit cards. Lisa blatantly used her financial woes as a weapon. Emily looked at her mother-in-law one last time. And you, Karen, he's your son. How much are you willing to contribute? What can I do? I live on my pension. Emily, how heartless you are. Does one really need to count money so meticulously in a family? Karen made Emily seem like the guilty one. Give me time to think. This isn't a sum I can make an emotional decision about. How much time do you need? Kevin's studies start in less than 3 months. Then we should have discussed this 3 months ago. You say he received the invitation a month ago. Why are you only presenting me with a fait accompli now? Emily, heading for the exit, looked at her husband. David, I'm going. We'll talk at home. I won't drop this matter. As she opened the door, Karen's shout echoed from behind her. Emily, what? Is that how a daughter-in-law behaves? Is that a human way to treat your husband's family? Come back. Emily slammed the door, ignoring the shouts. The cold night air bit her cheeks, but inside, it was colder than outside. That night, Emily lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling. David still hadn't returned home by midnight. He was probably with his family, discussing how terrible she was and making new plans. Emily picked up her smartphone and carefully typed into the search bar, property division in divorce, protecting pre-marital assets, countering financial manipulation by relatives. Scrolling through the pages, she realized it wasn't just the $100,000 that wounded her. It was their disgusting attitude. They saw her not as a family member, but as an ATM from which money could be withdrawn at any moment. No respect, no care, only their greed. Well then, Emily whispered coldly. The relationship was irrevocably broken, and she was no longer going to play the role of the good daughter-in-law. It was time to protect what was hers and show these audacious people their place. Monday morning, Emily's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Her husband's relatives, who usually never called, began to attack her one after another. First was her husband's uncle. Emily, this is your uncle. I heard everything from Karen. You should help your brother-in-law with his studies. That's how it's always been in the family. The one who has the means helps with big matters. You're a department head in a big corporation. You should know how to sacrifice for the family. Emily, feeling a headache begin, replied, "Hello, uncle. But $100,000 is a large sum, and I have my own plans for the future. I need to think about it." What's there to think about? Young people today are too calculating. How can you be so stingy with family? What kind of relative are you after that? The uncle, not listening to her reply, lectured her admonishingly and hung up. No sooner had she put down the phone than her husband's aunt called. "Emily, this is your aunt." "Well, you just need to make a decision about Kevin's studies. Imagine what an honor for our family if we have a doctor of science. And your husband David will be proud, and it will be honorable for you to have such a professor for a brother-in-law." "Aunt, $100,000 is more than half of my annual salary. I can't make such a decision alone. Who doesn't know it's a lot of money? But since you became a manager, you clearly have the means to handle it. In our time, helping your husband's brothers was a sacred duty for daughters-in-law. Stop being stubborn and listen to your mother-in-law." Emily didn't have the strength to continue the conversation and put her phone on silent, but the screen kept flashing, adding to the list of missed calls. "Emily, if it's something urgent, you can answer." "You don't look well," her boss said with concern, but Emily forced a smile and shook her head. "No, thank you. It's spam. Let's continue the report." After the meeting, she checked her phone. 15 missed calls. It seemed they had mobilized her entire extended family against her. The messages in her messenger were even worse. At the top was a message from her sister-in-law, Lisa. "Sister-in-law, all the relatives have probably called you by now. They're all worried about Kevin. Don't be offended by them. If you make a decision faster, everyone will calm down. It's all for the good of the family, right?" Then a message came from her brother-in-law, Kevin. "Sister-in-law, I'm really sorry. I didn't ask the relatives to call, but Mom is very anxious and apparently consulted them. I feel bad that you're having problems because of me." Despite the apology, the message contained no mention of him giving up his studies. She immediately called her husband. "Darling, can you talk?" "Yes, I have a minute. What's wrong?" "All your relatives are calling me, one after another, right now. Uncle, aunt, even people I barely know, demanding money." "Did your mother ask them to?" David was silent for a long time, then sighed heavily. "Mom is just nervous. Kevin's studies are starting soon, and you're not giving an answer. So she complained to the relatives. Darling, let's not fight. Just bear with it a little longer." "Bear with it?" "They mobilized the entire family to paint me as a bad daughter-in-law who won't give money. And you think patience will solve this? How can you always side with your mother?" Emily's voice grew louder, and passing colleagues began to look at her. David, embarrassed, changed the subject. "I'm not on Mom's side. I understand it's hard for you, but you know Mom's personality. Maybe just say yes, and then we'll figure something out." "I'm at work. Let's talk at home." David hastily hung up. Emily, holding back tears, gripped her phone. Towards evening, Lisa called again, but Emily didn't answer. Immediately, an angry message arrived. "Sister-in-law, why are you ignoring my calls? If elders call you, you should at least answer." Emily, controlling her anger, replied, "I was very busy at work and couldn't talk. I'll call back later." Is work more important than family? You're too focused on work. You need to be more humane, not drive a wedge between relatives over money. Emily didn't reply again and put her phone deeper into her bag. Around 9 p.m., as soon as she arrived home, her mother-in-law called again. "Emily, you ignored all your relatives' calls today. They all called me and said how cold you are. Is that how a daughter-in-law should behave, not answering calls from elders?" "Karen, I told you I was in a meeting. To earn the money you want, I need to work. Family harmony is more important than any meeting. You're behaving very badly. This is a very important matter for our family. So, I don't have the right to refuse? The money is from my account, but my opinion doesn't matter? What right? It's your duty, as a daughter-in-law. If everyone insists, Then there's nothing to think about. Stop being stubborn and transfer the money tomorrow. Karen's voice was firm and audacious. Emily silently hung up. Soon, David came home and, looking at his wife, cautiously asked, "Darling, did you talk to Mom?" "Don't be so angry. She's worried about Kevin's future. If we just give in a little, everything will be resolved." "Give in? Why should I be the only one to give in? Why am I the only one expected to sacrifice?" David silently lowered his eyes. Emily, realizing the cold reality, went to her office and locked the door. "I wasn't family to them, just an unfailing ATM." Emily whispered coldly in the darkness. The view from the window was beautiful, but her heart felt an icy calm. Emily made a vow to herself again. It was time to rip off the mask of family that they cherished so much. Friday evening, Emily returned home earlier than usual. She was sitting on the living room sofa, catching her breath, when suddenly there was a loud sound of the lock opening, and her mother-in-law burst into the apartment without warning. In her hands was a thick envelope with documents. Entering the living room, Karen, without even a greeting, threw the envelope on the table. "Emily, you're home already? Excellent. Give me a minute. There's a document here that's formally necessary for sending Kevin off to his studies." Karen hastily pulled papers from the envelope and spread them on the table. There appeared to be at least 3 sheets. Emily, frowning, stared at them. "Karen, what are these documents? Why are you bringing them so suddenly, without any explanation?" Emily reached for the papers to read, but Karen quickly put a pen in her hand and rushed her. "Oh, what's there to read? It's just family consent for them to vouch for Kevin during his studies. The university needs to be assured of his family's reliability. The lawyers have checked everything. You just need to sign here at the bottom." Karen pointed with her finger to the signature line on the last page. Her eyes burned with impatience and greed. Emily, holding the pen, calmly replied, "Even if it's family consent, I need to know exactly what I'm signing. Please wait a minute. I'll read it. What's wrong with you today? I'm your mother-in-law. Would I deceive you?" David already checked everything and signed. "David, tell her." From the bedroom, where he had been lurking, her husband David emerged with a strained smile. "Darling, Mom's right. It's just a formality. I read it too. There's nothing special there. For studying abroad, you need a lot of such papers. Just sign it and let's get this over with." "David, are you sure you read these documents? Do you understand their legal implications?" At his wife's sharp question, David looked away and mumbled, "Oh, why are you starting with legal stuff again? We're family. It's a trifle. If you don't sign, Kevin won't be able to go study. Do you want to take on that responsibility?" Her husband's cowardice made Emily laugh. Karen, sensing the moment, pressured her again. "Emily, don't complicate things. Kevin's studies start in less than a month. If this document isn't submitted today, he won't be able to enroll this semester at all." Is that how a daughter-in-law behaves, doubting every word and undermining family harmony? Emily calmly pushed aside Karen's hand and slowly picked up the documents. Karen held tightly to the top of the page, but Emily's sharp gaze managed to catch part of the title: Agreement on Joint Asset Management and Joint and Several Liability. Emily's heart sank, but she didn't show it. Kevin's gambling debt of $850, Karen's apartment deposit debt of $120, and then the fabricated $100,000 for studies. They had cooked up this dirty scheme to pin all these debts on her. "Karen, is this by any chance a document about surety for debts?" The title seems to have the word liability. At these words, Karen's face turned crimson. She snatched the documents, flipped them over, and screamed, "What garbage are you spewing? I told you, it's not that. It's just a family support agreement. How many times do I have to repeat myself? Don't you trust your mother-in-law at all? The law firm will close soon. Sign it quickly. Come on." David also impatiently urged her. "Darling, Mom is telling you. Just sign it. Why are you ruining everyone's mood? Sign it and let's get it over with." Emily paused for a moment. Fiddling with the tip of the pen, she stood at a crossroads. She slowly raised her head and looked at her mother-in-law. "All right, Karen, if you insist, I'll sign." Emily took the pen and clearly, letter by letter, wrote her name in the signature box, Emily. As the 3 words appeared on the paper, a triumphant, sly smile appeared on Karen's face. Now that's what I call our daughter-in-law. Smart people make decisions quickly. Well done, Emily. Karen, afraid Emily would change her mind, hastily snatched the documents and put them back in the envelope. Then she proudly stood up. Well, I'm going. David, walk Mom to her car. Help with the bags. Yes, Mom. Darling, thank you. I'll be right back. David, beaming with joy, followed his mother out. The door slammed shut, and a heavy silence once again fell over the living room. Emily picked up the pen left on the table. She unclenched her fingers, and the pen fell limply to the floor. That's it, Emily whispered softly. Her signature was not a promise to give money to her husband's family. It was her own plan, which would put an end to this dirty family life and lead them to a legal collapse. Her ignorant in-laws had no idea that for the surety to become legally binding, a personal identity confirmation procedure and additional documents were required. On the contrary, this document would become decisive evidence that they had tried to fraudulently acquire her property. Emily went into her office and turned on her laptop. She created a new folder titled Preparation. The file inside was named Divorce Strategy and Damages Claim. Now I'll show you what real hell is. Karen, you'll see how you fall because of the very money you love so much. Emily's quiet voice echoed coldly in the empty office. The month had just begun. On the night the registered letter with the divorce agreement and claim for emotional damages was sent, a cold silence reigned in Emily's house. But this silence was broken by her phone, which seemed to be convulsing on the table. Exactly at 6 p.m., as if waiting for the end of the workday, the first call came from her mother-in-law, Karen. Emily sat calmly on the sofa, watching the flickering screen. She didn't answer. The phone continued to vibrate on the table. At 6:10 p.m., Karen, not giving up, called again. This time, the call was longer. At 6:15 p.m., Lisa, her sister-in-law, called. Emily emotionlessly flipped the phone face down. Immediately, a message came from her husband, David. Darling, what's going on? Mom just called me. She's hysterical. What documents did you send? Divorce. Are you out of your mind? Pick up the phone. Emily slowly read the message, but didn't reply or even move. Instead, she turned on her laptop and opened her pre-prepared folder. By 7 p.m., her husband's uncle had joined the attack. The screen already showed 7 missed calls. After 7:30 p.m., messages from Lisa poured in like a deluge. Sister-in-law, what have you done? What divorce agreement? What claim for damages? Pick up the phone immediately. Mom is in shock. She's not well. She's about to faint. How can you be so cruel? We're family. Emily carefully read each of Lisa's messages, then, without regret, pressed the delete button. Shaking off the nauseating feeling from the word family, she began to compile her own to-do list. She wrote down the addresses of 3 banks she needed to visit to close joint accounts and began the process of disabling automatic utility payments from her account. She double-checked her marriage certificate and recordings of conversations containing the unreasonable demands of her husband's family. After 8 p.m., the calls didn't stop. Her aunt, cousins, and even David's colleagues called. The number of missed calls exceeded 34. At 8:30 p.m., another message came from David. Emily, please, I'm begging you, pick up the phone. What divorce? We had dinner together just yesterday. Why did you change so suddenly? It's all my fault. I'll apologize. Just, let's talk. Emily, smirking at her husband's cowardly attempt to appease her, added find separate accommodation to her list. She checked the move-in date for the studio apartment she had already rented. At 9 p.m., a long message arrived from her mother-in-law, Karen. Emily, it's me. What a thunderbolt. You signed the documents, and suddenly divorce. Do you think that's normal? You decided to humiliate our family. Imagine what your parents will say. Immediately take back those papers and come to our place tomorrow morning. Karen didn't apologize at all, only lectured her. Emily's face remained calm. At 9:40 p.m., the tone of her husband's family shifted from persuasion to open threats. A voice message came from Lisa. Emily calmly pressed play. Sister-in-law, are you kidding? You decided to derail Kevin's studies. You signed the papers, and now you're refusing. That's fraud. You know that's criminally punishable. Do you think we'll let this go? If you don't immediately apologize and transfer the money, we'll take action too. Be warned. Emily coldly deleted the voice message with Lisa's poisonous voice and added confirm appointment with the law firm to her to-do list. At 10 p.m., her husband David, unable to bear it, drove to her house and began furiously ringing the doorbell. Emily, I know you're home. Open up. Let's talk, please. The doorbell's ringing grated on her ears, but Emily put on headphones and focused on the Excel file on her laptop screen. David's pleading cries behind the door no longer held any meaning for her. What did I do wrong? Why are you doing this to me? Open the door. David's voice alternated between pathetic and angry. Emily silently checked the numbers in the Excel file. The market value of the apartment, account balances, estimated severance package. She finished the precise calculations to rebuild her life. At 10:30 p.m., David finally kicked the door, left a message saying he would come tomorrow, and left. Closer to midnight, Emily turned her phone back on. The notification panel literally exploded. 87 missed calls, 43 SMS, 128 messages in Messenger. Scrolling through the call list, she saw that Karen led with 35 calls. Lisa and David followed. At 2 a.m., the last message arrived. Of course, from her mother-in-law. Emily, tomorrow you will come to our place and beg for forgiveness on your knees. If you don't show up by morning, consider it over. Don't want to be a ghost in the Miller family? I won't leave you alone. Emily looked at this message and, for the first time since the divorce process began, typed a reply. It's already over. From now on, all conversations go through my lawyer. Emily's finger pressed the send button without the slightest hesitation. She flipped the phone over again and closed her eyes. The night, which had brought 120 intrusive and dirty messages, was coming to an end. Emily had no tears left, no anger. She was ready to watch their fall. Exactly 1 week after sending the divorce agreement and lawsuit, Emily's phone, which usually vibrated with calls from her mother-in-law, received a call from an unexpected person. It was her brother-in-law, Kevin. Emily, sitting at her desk reviewing documents, calmly answered the call. Yes, Kevin. What's wrong? Sister-in-law. The thing is, my trip to America is a little delayed. That's why I'm calling. Kevin's voice was unusually constrained and trembling. Emily, slowly twirling her pen, coldly asked, Oh, really? You were in such a hurry, said there was only a month left until classes started. Why the sudden delay? Well, the university said there's a delay in reviewing documents, probably because of the visa, so it might have to be postponed until next semester. Then what about the tuition fees you said you already paid? Your mother said she already transferred over $10,000. At this sharp question, Kevin awkwardly coughed. The university said they'd transfer it to next semester. Everything's fine. Don't worry, sister-in-law. It's not for me to worry. You've handled everything yourselves, haven't you? At these words with their implied meaning, Kevin replied, Yes, of course, then I'll call later, and hastily hung up. Emily, putting down the phone, pondered. The words about them having already paid for the tuition were a lie. Where could a family that asked her for $100,000 get such money? The next day, a message came from Lisa. Sister-in-law, Kevin's studies are a bit delayed, so please postpone the money transfer we discussed for now. We'll let you know when the situation clears up. Emily, reading this, laughed at the absurdity. She had no intention of transferring anything, and they were acting as if they were generously giving her an extension. But soon she understood the reason. 3 days later, calls from unfamiliar numbers began to come to her phone. At first, they were calls with New York area codes, and when she didn't answer, after lunch, calls from New Jersey area codes began to come in. Emily intuitively understood. Collectors. It started. Emily looked at the 15 missed calls from unknown numbers that had accumulated over the week. It seemed her husband's family, having failed to secure the surety in her name, had taken out high-interest loans to pay off their most urgent debts. On Friday evening, her mother-in-law called again. This time, her voice was not authoritative as usual, but somewhat subdued and trembling. "Emily, it's me. Are you busy? Find some time this weekend, come over to our place." "What's wrong? I told you I'm no longer your daughter-in-law." "Why isn't it your daughter-in-law?" "The documents aren't finalized yet. Just come over, we'll see each other. David will be there too. We'll have dinner together." "Dinner? You mobilized all your relatives to persecute me for not giving $100,000 for his studies, and suddenly dinner?" To this sarcasm, Karen replied, "What do you mean, suddenly? When your mother-in-law calls her daughter-in-law, you come. Come tomorrow evening, definitely," and hung up. Emily understood something serious had happened, and they urgently needed her help. On Saturday evening, Emily headed into the epicenter of the storm, her mother-in-law's house. When she opened the door, Karen, Lisa, and her husband David were sitting on the sofa with anxiety on their faces. Kevin, who was supposedly going to study, was not there. "You're here. Sit down, have some tea." Karen offered tea with a strained smile, but anxiety was visible in her eyes. Emily, ignoring this fake hospitality, sat down on the edge of the sofa. "Where's Kevin? He's delayed at his research institute." "Yes, our Kevin is so diligent. He says there's a lot to finish before he leaves." Karen, glancing at Emily, fiddled with her teacup. Emily, to end this disgusting charade, spoke first. "I heard his studies are delayed. Perhaps there are some difficulties at the university." "Well, yes. There's a lot of bureaucracy in American universities. It looks like it will be postponed until next semester." "And what about the money for tuition and relocation that you prepared?" "Lisa even sent a message telling me not to transfer money yet." When Emily looked at Lisa, she, embarrassed, looked away. "Oh, that's just sitting in the account. We thought maybe you'd change your mind, and we'd combine it." "I'm not changing my mind, don't worry. And also, Lisa, you said I needed to forget about the divorce. I have no such thoughts." At these resolute words, Karen's face suddenly changed, and she said imploringly, "Emily, let's talk nicely. We apologize if we were too insistent, but don't things happen in families? You can't just break off relationships over one mistake." "Mistakes?" "Karen, do you consider it a mistake to try to pin your son's gambling debts and your own debts on your daughter-in-law under the guise of fabricated studies? Do you consider it a mistake to try to forge a surety in my name without my consent?" At this exposé, a ghastly silence fell over the living room. Karen's face turned pale, and David mumbled, "Darling, this is a misunderstanding. Mom had her own considerations." "A misunderstanding? You probably thought I was a fool. You thought I didn't read the title of that document you slipped me. Agreement on Joint Asset Management and Joint and Several Liability. You thought I didn't know what that was?" Emily pulled a copy of the document from her bag and threw it loudly on the table. Karen, her lips trembling, couldn't utter a word. "I've already checked everything. Kevin's gambling debts, your mortgage on the apartment, everything. You wanted to use me not as a family member, but as a shield to cover your debts, didn't you?" "Karen, that's not true." "Stop it. Enjoy your meal. I'm leaving this hell forever." "Oh yes. All the collectors who call my number, I gave them your address. So, expect visitors soon." Emily stood up and headed for the exit. From behind, Karen screamed, "Emily, wait! Do you want us to die?" But Emily never looked back. Getting into her car, Emily took a deep breath. She felt lighter. The initiative was now entirely in her hands. The first act of her revenge was complete. All that remained was to watch their pathetic fall. Monday morning, the doorbell of Karen Miller's house rang persistently. Opening the door, she saw two unfamiliar men in strict black suits. In their hands were briefcases with a law firm logo. "Karen Miller, we are from Justice and Law Associates. We're here regarding your son, Kevin Miller's debt." At the men's cold voices, Karen's face instantly turned white as paper. She asked in a trembling voice, "Debt? What are you talking about? You must have the wrong address," trying to deny reality, but the answer was like a death sentence. "You co-signed your son Kevin Miller's loan. Currently, the amount of the debt, including interest, is $850,000. Despite repeated demands, he shows no intention of repaying the debt. Therefore, we are here with an official notification. What? $850,000. What has our Kevin done? No, this can't be. Karen's legs gave way, and she sank to the floor, leaning against the wall. One of the men, ignoring her, pulled out a document and held it up to her face. This apartment, registered in your name, is already mortgaged. If you do not provide a repayment plan within 1 week, we will begin foreclosure proceedings on the property. We give you 1 week. Here's our business card. Throwing the business card on the floor, the men coldly turned and left. Karen, left alone in the empty living room, sobbed, making animalistic sounds. But this was only the beginning of the tragedy. At 2 p.m., the family chat exploded. Lisa, her sister-in-law, wrote that she had also been called by a law firm. "Mom, I just got a call from a law firm. What are Kevin's debts? What surety?" Karen, with trembling hands, typed a reply. "I don't know. I'm calling that scoundrel. He's not answering." "Lisa, what should I do?" David, watching this in horror, also joined the conversation. $850,000 is a huge amount of money. Where could that scoundrel Kevin get such a sum? "Mom, what happened to the $100,000 we were saving for his studies? Did you use it to pay off the debt?" "I tell you, I don't know. Kevin said he was preparing a startup, and he needed a little help before getting investments. I thought if he got a PhD, his future would be secured. It's not just the surety. You mortgaged the apartment too. When did you do that?" To Lisa's sharp question, Karen, with trembling lips, replied. "He said it wouldn't be for long, that as soon as he got the investments, he'd pay it all back. I couldn't not help my son, who has such a brilliant future." David, sitting in the work restroom and staring at his smartphone screen, grabbed his head. Now everything fell into place. The sudden decision to go study in America, the hysteria about needing $100,000 urgently, and the desperate attempts to make Emily sign the documents. They wanted to use Emily's money not for tuition, but to pay off Kevin's gambling and credit card debts. David, with a trembling hand, dialed Emily's number, but only heard ringing in response. She had already blocked him. At 6 p.m., the family gathered in Karen's living room in oppressive silence. The culprit, Kevin, still hadn't appeared. Karen screamed, asking where he was, but Lisa only shook her head. "He hasn't even shown up for work. He was on a temporary contract at some institute. It's unclear how he managed to get into such debt with that salary. What PhD? It was all a lie from beginning to end. That scoundrel Kevin ruined our whole family." At David's shout, Karen, covering her face with her hands, sobbed. "He said he had $25,000 left. I thought we'd send him to study, and he'd change his life." "What $25,000? What studies? Mom, wake up. They're taking our house, and you're still talking about his studies?" In the midst of this scene, Lisa suddenly fell silent and cautiously suggested, "Listen, brother, maybe we should call sister-in-law again. She's a department head at a major company. Maybe she knows how to solve problems like this. And we'll return the money somehow later." A cold silence fell over the living room. Karen and David exchanged glances. "Do you think Emily will help? After everything we did to her?" Karen asked weakly. But David only shook his head. "She filed for divorce in court. Of course, she won't help. We treated her like an ATM. She's not a fool. Then what do we do? If they take the house, I'll be on the street." "David, do something." Karen cried and clung to her son, but he only lowered his head. Lisa took out her phone to text Emily, but stopped. To type one word, help, she had to overcome too great a mountain of her own audacity. At this time, Emily, in her new clean studio apartment, looked at the night city and drank wine. On her laptop screen was a detailed schedule of the divorce process and asset division from the law firm. At that moment, a missed call notification from Lisa flashed and disappeared on her smartphone screen. Emily, looking at the screen, smiled coldly and elegantly. "Now you understand that I was your last lifeline, but it's too late." Raising her glass, Emily admired the lights of the night city. Next to her, there was no more extortion disguised as love, No more abuse under the name of family. The outcome had been predetermined from the very beginning. Watching those who had dug their own grave now crawling into it, Emily felt absolute serenity. Thursday at 10 a.m., in the cold family court, Emily, in a sharp suit, sat next to her lawyer and carefully reviewed the final documents. Opposite her sat her husband, David, with a sunken face and an empty gaze. The judge, in a colorless voice, flipped through the papers and began. A property division agreement has already been reached by both parties. The invalidation of the surety for debts, obtained by fraud, has also been legally formalized. Defendant, do you have any objection? The judge's gaze rested on David. He, as if deprived of his soul, weakly shook his head. No, it's all my fault. In that case, the divorce is finalized. Thank you, everyone. The sound of the gavel striking echoed in the courtroom. This sound was like liberation from heavy shackles that had weighed on Emily her whole life. Emily carefully took the court decision and silently stood up. As she walked towards the exit without looking back, David hastily caught up to her and blocked her path. Emily, please wait. Let's talk. We can't just leave like strangers. Is there anything for us to talk about? Everything has already been said in court. Emily didn't stop. David tried to grab her arm, but meeting her cold gaze, he helplessly dropped his hand. I'm sorry. I have no excuses, but Mom is having a very hard time right now. The house is about to be taken. The whole family will be on the street. You know that. And, what do you want from me? Are you still hoping I'll take on your debts? There wasn't a trace of pity in Emily's eyes. David, his lips trembling, mumbled, No, not that. But we were family. We had many good times. Why be so ruthless? My mother once loved you very much. Family. Don't deceive yourself. Your family never considered me one of you. I was just an unfailing ATM for you, to be used at any moment, and a sewer to dump all your garbage. Now we are absolute strangers. Don't pretend to know me anymore, and don't call. Emily stepped into the elevator. Through the closing doors, she saw David's face, contorted with despair, but she didn't look away. She stared straight ahead. Now David and his family were completely erased from her life. At the same time, a notice of sale for the property hung on the door of Karen Miller's house, next to a red sticker. Karen, afraid the neighbors would see, tore the paper with trembling hands and sobbed. It's all because of her. Because of one bad daughter-in-law. I'm losing my home, and my family is falling apart. That snake Emily trapped us. Lisa, standing nearby, sighed deeply. Mom, what do we do now? We need to move out within 3 months. Do we have anywhere to go? And what about Kevin? Where did he disappear to? His phone is off. Oh, I'll catch that scoundrel. How could he mortgage his mother's house? Oh, my bitter fate. Karen, unable to contain her anger, tore the notice to shreds, but the cold reality remained unchanged. Lisa, nervously fiddling with her smartphone, cautiously suggested, Mom, maybe we should still call sister-in-law one more time. Maybe she can help us get a loan to solve the most urgent problems. At these words, Karen glared at her daughter and screamed, Why would we call her? That snake who took every penny from us through court. And what did we do wrong to her? Isn't it a daughter-in-law's duty to help her husband's family in hard times? She just got arrogant because she started making a little money. Karen refused to admit her fault to the end, continuing to play the victim. Friday afternoon, Emily sat at her desk and checked the financial report for the second quarter. Neatly stacking the documents and signing them as department head, she headed to the director's office. Mr. Henderson, here's the analysis of the second quarter results and the strategy for the second half of the year. Everything is ready for next week's board meeting presentation. Oh, Emily, always so prompt. You've been looking so well lately, and your focus at work is amazing. Do you have some happy family event? The director asked with a smile. Emily calmly and serenely replied, I got rid of all my family problems, cut unnecessary expenses and emotional costs, and my work has gone much better. Is that so? I'm very happy for you. Keep up the good work in the second half of the year with the same attitude. Returning to her desk, Emily turned on her laptop and checked her email. At that moment, a message appeared on her phone from David. Emily, Let's meet one last time. Please, just once, listen to me. Mom says she'll die. Emily, reading this message, felt nothing. Before, her heart would have clenched. A feeling of guilt would have appeared, but now there was only emptiness. She deleted it without regret. A week later, after work, David again ambushed her in the office lobby. Emily, please, just once listen to me. Mom's house really was sold at auction. She's homeless now. Lisa has problems too. She lost the deposit for her school. No one else can save our family. Emily stopped and looked at David. Her gaze was so cold that he involuntarily recoiled. David, you still don't understand? Whether your family is ruined or homeless is no longer my concern. On the contrary, I believe it's a just retribution. How can you say that? How many years did we live together? I was wrong. I admit that I always sided with Mom and hurt you. Give me another chance. A chance? And then what? I'll once again pay off your mother's debts, clean up your brother's problems, and ruin my life? You only think about yourselves. Stop. Don't humiliate yourself anymore. Emily coldly uttered these words and headed for the parking lot. David cried something out behind her, tears in his eyes, but she never looked back. A month later, Emily sat in the living room of her new, spacious, and cozy apartment, drinking aromatic coffee. At that moment, the phone rang, an unfamiliar number, but she intuitively knew who it was. Soon a message arrived. Sister-in-law, this is Lisa. Please contact me. Mom cries every night and calls for you. We truly have nowhere to go. Please help. Emily looked at this message and calmly pressed the delete button. Then she flipped the phone over and took another sip of coffee. The view outside the window was peaceful, and she felt calmer than ever. She didn't curse them, nor did she wish them ill. She simply answered them with complete silence. True revenge is not to punish them, but to completely erase their existence from one's life. Now Emily understood this.